Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. And this is a show where I review all my comics I read this week. I go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. So this week I had 16 comics, which is a bit of a bigger haul than I've been getting. So it was nice to have a lot to read this week. But number 16 for me this week was Lois Lane, issue 2. A book I just haven't been able to get into. I haven't been loving the super titles lately, even with a different writer on board. But I did like seeing Rene in this issue. We haven't seen her in a while, and we got a glimpse of her from last issue. So it was nice to see them actually teaming up with issue 2. But just not really invested in the overall plot. I don't really care for everyone thinking that Lois is promiscuous because she was with Superman. I just don't really care for it. I understand, obviously, the narration, they're going for it and trying to really root it in real journalism and real world stuff that we're dealing with, but I just don't really like the overall plot of it, and maybe it's the artwork that really takes me out as well. But I do feel like it could be neater. I do feel like it's a bit on the darker side, and it's just not my style. I guess they're kind of going on for the New War, Jessica Jones style artwork, but yeah, I just wasn't really feeling this book, like I said. So overall, I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. We'll see how long I stick around with this book. I do want to try keeping it, because I think it's cool that Lois has a book, but we will see how long I last for that one. But moving on to number 15, which is the Sensational Spider-Man Self-Improvement Issue 1. Now, this is a book I honestly got because one of my favorite creative teams is on it, and that is Tom Defalco and Frenz. They are the same creative team of Spider-Girl, and as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of Spider-Girl, and I'm a huge fan of their work. So, I had a fun time with their story. If you like classic Spider-Man, you're going to enjoy it. And again, it was really nice just to see Frenz on a Spider-Man book, and obviously Tom Defalco on a Spider-Man book again as well. It felt very classic. I will say some of it was on the nose, though. So the person he's going up against is named Peter and also has to listen to his uncles. So I just feel like there wasn't enough pages to really flesh that out. And that's the shame of any time Tom and Ron do go to a Marvel project, they never give them enough page counts here. Usually it is a backup story or a story like this. So it would be nice for them to get like a whole issue. That would be cool. And then the other half is Peter David and who's doing the artwork, Rick Leonardi. But yeah, obviously Peter David has done a lot of stuff with Spider-Man in the past and is a staple in comics / Marvel Comics. And that's what this book's about. It's about the 80th anniversary of Marvel. So they're trying to celebrate the old school Spider-Man storytelling. And that is what you get with Spider-Man, the first storyline as well. But it didn't really do much for me. Like I said, it kind of felt bland overall. Even the artwork felt very bland to me. So I think this is a skippable issue unless you are a hardcore Spider-Man fan. For me, I obviously would still pick this up because I am a big fan of Tom Defalco and Frenz and Spider-Man. But it is a pretty hefty price tag, especially with some of the bigger books that came out this week, like Absolute Carnage having a $7.99 price tag. So, and then you also have House of X with the heavy price tag. So I can understand if you need to pick and choose. This might not be the one that totally makes your pull list. So giving that one 2.5 stars, and that is number 15. Moving on to number 14, which is Witchblade, issue 15. And this is a book that I like, and usually it takes a while for me to get an issue that's in my top 5, but once it's there, it's worth it. But it's a very slow burn, and we're kind of in that land right now, where we get to see our main characters in this future apocalyptic world, which is not my favorite setting, and they're trying to go against it. They're trying to go back to where they're from, and that's kind of it. The stuff I did like here is that Alex doesn't have the Witchblade, and she's still a badass in trying to, again, escape this world. So I thought that was cool, and I like Alex as a protagonist, which is why I am following this book. I still really do like her voice, but overall the plot hasn't done it for me in a long time with Witchblade, and I hope it ends up finding itself soon. It's a book not many people talk about, but it does have a franchise, so I think that's why it gets the sales that it can to stay alive. But yeah, giving this 2.5 stars, and that is number 14. All right, I believe that was 14. So moving on to let me get my list up. Moving on to number 13, which is Champions issue 8. Now, this was actually announced that this book will be ending. And honestly, I feel like this book never really met the height of the last arc of Champions, which I really enjoyed. And the biggest issue being that there's just too much going on. Too many plots that don't really feel connected. And that's exactly the issue for this issue, where we get to see these D-list heroes that I don't quite care about, trying to, fight and be the champions, while the part I do enjoy, Viv, trying to keep everything in control because she's really the only old champion left. And then you have this weird cliffhanger where did Riri attack Viv? What's going on here? And that I'm actually interested to see where that goes. And then you have the Nova stuff in the mix of it. So Sam does get his helmet back and goes against that assassin lady girl, even though they were hanging out for a little while. But I also don't really love the coloring. I feel like it's a little bit too bright. I don't love the yellows that are used here. So overall, like I said, pretty forgettable issue, and it's a shame that this series is coming to an end in so far a pretty lackluster nature, and I feel like there could have been so much more that was explored that just wasn't. So Champions issue 8 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is Batman, issue 76. This always ends up not being my least favorite, but always pretty low. And it's just because I'm kind of tired of this storyline. And I guess King's run in general. I do like Tom King as a writer, but sometimes it's your time to go. And Tom King is going to be wrapping up his run and then moving on to Catwoman and Batman, which might be a complete continuation of what we've been getting here, but I also really enjoyed King's run the most when he was doing Catwoman and Batman. So maybe I'll feel a little differently with that series. He might have more freedom to do what he wants with the relationship. But we do get to see Catwoman here sneaking in as in a creepy way as Batman is unconscious. So I guess they're trying to get them back together, but it also kind of feels sudden because they haven't been interacting at all. But it also doesn't feel sudden because, oh my god, we've been taking so long to try to get here. And that's honestly been my biggest issue of, everything does feel slow, but they never utilize the time to build up the actual plot that's going on in the book. And that goes into the Bane stuff, too. It just feels like Bane's been here forever, but nothing's really happened to get to this moment of Bane taking over Gotham. And yeah, that's what we get in this issue with the new Batman. Gotham Girl, I always have a fun time with. And the reason I give this 3 stars, because I do think the artwork is gorgeous as always. And also, like I said, I like the Gotham Girl stuff. I like some of the Kite Man dialogue. I enjoy small pieces of the book, but overall, just not really liking the plot. So Batman issue 76 gets 3 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, which is DCeased issue 4. And this is kind of a middle ground book for me. As you guys do know, I do like Tom Taylor's writing a lot, especially for Elseworld books. But DCeased hasn't really met the Injustice standard for me, and I think with this issue I kind of figured out why, because obviously with Injustice you had a very unique plot going on. It's Superman becoming evil. It's unique, but also it's like, oh wait, how have we not seen this before? How have we not seen Superman and Batman go at it like this? And that's what made Injustice so good, and obviously the way Taylor used really the whole DC universe as his supporting cast members. And here, he does the same thing. He does the same thing with the supporting cast members, and we really get to see some unique shining moments of characters we might not usually see in other DC titles. So that is the aspect I really enjoy, which is why it's a bit higher than some of the other books. But the plot is zombies, we've seen this before, and I don't really know if it's doing anything unique to the genre, and that's what makes this book suffer a little bit for me. And also the artwork, I know it's zombies and horror, so it can be sketchy and a little messy, but it's particularly not my favorite type of art style. But yeah, there's a couple of scenes I do like Mera going to Themyscira. I thought that was cool. We get to see Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn meet up again, so that was cool. I always love their relationship, and I really like how Tom Taylor writes their relationship, so it was cool to see that. So yeah, there's definitely some cool character shining moments, but overall, I don't know if this is a book that's totally necessary for an Elseworld book, but I am gonna see it through. Obviously, there's only 2 more issues. We'll see how it ends up, but plot-wise, I don't think a lot has happened besides, okay, there's this virus. What do we do now? We'll fight it. So, yeah, definitely more about the characters for this book, and if you enjoy the DC Universe and some inkling of Injustice, I think you'll like it, but I don't think it's met that standard for me yet. So, DCeased issue 4 gets 3.5 stars. And I keep thinking this is like a crumple on my cover, but it's just the sky in the cover, so that's an illusion. Alright, moving on to number, let's see, we're up to number 10, which is that $7.99 price tag of a book, and that's Absolute Carnage issue 1. So it kind of met the middle for me. I think I'm going to read more, but I will say, if you're reading Venom, continue to read this. You know, it's obviously continuing the story from there. If you're just a Spider-Man fan and you were like, hey, this is a Spider-Man event, I'm going to pick it up like I did, I don't know if you're going to get as much from it. It definitely feels more like an Eddie book, which obviously makes sense. This is the creative team of Venom. But I did like their interaction with Peter. I don't really quite understand how Normie got involved into all of it, especially where they're trying to keep Spider-Man's identity a secret, but he calls Normie his godson. So I think you kind of make the connection that Spider-Man and Peter Parker are the same person, or at least, you know, it could be related in some way. So that was like a weird move, but I guess it's just like, hey, we want to mention this is his godson a couple of times. And then we get to the actual Absolute Carnage part, which is cool. Nothing mind-blowing for me, but I think it's, you know, ramps up the action. And it gave me enough as a Spider fan to want to read more. There definitely were some cool, you know, Spider characters. Like I said, you get to see Normie here. We haven't seen him in a while. We get the mention of Norman Osborn. So we definitely have some big moves happening here. So as a Spider-Man fan, I'm going to try it out. Especially because I have a feeling it's going to connect into some of the other Spider stuff as well. So I feel like I kind of have to read it. But we will see where this one goes. But I will say, Ryan Stegman on art, I mean, this is some of his best work. Especially, I love the even though it's a simple page, but Peter just in his costume, it kind of had this Civil War look, and even though a lot of people don't like Civil War for good reason, I love the artwork for the Civil War Spider-Man stuff, so it kind of reminds me of his look there. But yeah, even some of the humor really works here, like where we get to see Randy answer the door, and he sees like these losers at his door, which is like Eddie. He's like, okay, and he's bloody as well. So he's like, all right, this is definitely for Peter. I'm gonna call him. So I enjoyed that, and again, the artwork is just splendid. I love the coloring for it. I think the dark coloring with the reds really works here. So Absolute Carnage issue 1, definitely pricey, which is why it's in the middle for me. But if you're a big Venom fan, you've been enjoying the series, definitely pick this one up. If you're not, you might be able to skip this one. We'll see how the series ends up in the next couple issues and the million tie-ins that it has. So yeah, giving that one 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 9, which is actually another Don and Kate's book, and that is Baby Teeth issue 15, a book that I actually do read on a consecutive basis, even though it doesn't really come out on a consecutive basis. The last issue I think came out in like January, so it's been like half a year since the last issue came out. But it is a memorable book, so once I read the first 2 pages, like, oh yeah, this is where we're at. Cool. I'm going to read through it. But I will say I lose some steam because we're not really getting this monthly or at least bi-monthly, and that's why it's a bit lower for me. I think some of the drama could have been better if I was reading this back-to-back or even reading it in trade. But I like where it's going. I think there's some good surprises with our villain, I guess, the dad, maybe not dad character, because who knows, everyone's kind of lying in this book, and that's kind of the lesson we learn here. Their dad might have died in this one, who knows, it looks like he did, so, and also the artwork is just splendid. I mean, it seems like Donny Cates has some really good collaborators, but look at that coloring, and I love kind of the chalkiness of it all. It really works here. So, yeah, overall, pretty good issue, but I think it would have been a better one if it came straight after issue 14, like a month or 2 later, and not 7 months later. So, Baby Teeth issue 15 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 10, I believe? Now it's number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, issue 7. the book is not as good as it used to be because the artwork has changed. And I did like obviously Dan Mora a lot on this book, and I really miss his artwork. And David Lopez just definitely has a different style, and I don't love his eye work. Their eyes are so buggy to me. But the story was pretty good, where we get to see Willow dealing with having half a soul and saving Xander and not feeling full anymore and what that means for her. So if you're a Willow fan, especially a Dark Willow fan, you're obviously seeing these events happen a lot earlier in the story, which is cool, and how that affects their high school days. And that's something I've been really enjoying about Buffy, is that they're tackling stories straight away. Because, yeah, we know these characters. Let's get into it. I will say, it's not as new reader friendly because of it, because I think you have to really have the history with the characters and enjoy the story going on. Whereas in Angel, as of right now, it seems a bit more new reader friendly if you've never seen the show or, never seen, or never read any of the comics. But I obviously seen and love Buffy and Angel, so I've been enjoying it a lot. So I'm wondering, for people who haven't seen the show fully or seen the show at all, if they're able to latch onto it, because that was like a big motive or motivation of these books, is to make it modern and make it for a new audience, or is it for the same audience that it's obviously just a couple of decades later? But yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer issue 7 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. I'm gonna take a sip of water, and we're gonna move on to number 7. Number 7 for me this week is the Immortal Hulk issue 22. I know it's a little lower than usual, but I just thought it was a slower issue. I think they spread themselves a little bit too thin. We get to see the enemies and, what's going on with them, that he's this kind of Hulk version, abomination thing going on. Then we get to see Alpha Flight in here with Samson, and then we get to see our Hulk team. And the moments I enjoyed the most was definitely our Hulk team. I especially love Betty and Bruce in this story, where Betty's just comfortable with who she is now. Where Bruce, or, whatever his name is, what's his counterpart name? Let me see. I forget his counterpart, whatever his counterpart name is, the crazy guy. But yeah, we're talking to him, and I really enjoyed their dynamic, where Betty just is cool with being this. Is like, no, I am a monster, this is who I am, bye. And then just watching Rick kind of come back to life. Is he gonna come back to life? Question mark. And that's a big part. Actually, he did by the end of the issue, but like, as the issue was going on, they're like, all right, is he going to be okay or not? And by the end, obviously, night came, so he was okay. And we're going to see the Hulks fight our enemies. So we'll see where that ends up going. But I love the artwork of this book, and that's definitely one of the major parts I enjoy. And again, those small character moments, like the Betty and Bruce moment. And even the reporter I'm starting to like a lot, too. But I do think this issue was a more point A to point B issue to get them to this fight, but still love this book, and I love this cover as well. It's my favorite cover of the week. So giving this 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. Alright, moving on to number 6, which is Deathstroke, issue 46. And this is a book I actually starting to like a little bit more. I've had it on my pull list for a long time, and there's been times where I'm like, is it done? Should I drop it? Should it be off my pull list? But every single couple issues kind of brings me back in as they do something new, and you want to see more from the creative team. And with this one, honestly, it's because Deathstroke's not in it. It's really cool to see how his kids react to Deathstroke being dead and the ramifications of that and how that's affecting their lives. And there's some really cool plot points to happen here. I will say there's some interesting exposition about Deathstroke's powers that kind of went out there for me, but I still enjoyed what it meant for Jericho and what it means for Rose and their relationship and how that affects the whole family's relationship. And then even Red Arrow was involved here, so I really liked her narration. So if you're enjoying Teen Titans, I think you should check this one out as well. And the artwork, like I said, is extremely solid. So overall, I give this 3.5 stars. I think it's a big improvement from what we've been getting. All right, moving on to number 5. You guys are going to be shocked by this because it's a lot higher than what I've had it for the past 2 weeks. And that is House of X, issue 2. I really enjoyed this issue because, yes, there was a lot of exposition, but they focused on one character. And I got to know this character a little bit more. And it, again, felt a bit more character-driven because of it. Now, I will say, I still think there's some confusing aspects to this book because we get to see Moira who was not a mutant in the past, we see, okay, she is a mutant, and what that means, and she has about 8 timelines, 8 reincarnations, or even more than that. I think she gets up to 11, and she does different stuff. Her motivations change. So at first she hates mutants, the next she's in love with Professor Xavier, then after that she teams up with Magneto, and then somehow this is all happening in, I guess, in the same time period, but different lives. That's the part where I was a little confused. So they do give you like a little timeline in more than a little. They give you a big timeline in the back of the book, but they don't say any dates. So you know the dates for her, but you don't know, okay, this is 1960, this is happening, this is 1980. Because how does Moira live all these lives and Professor Xavier is there as well and Magneto is there? The only life that seems separate from Professor Xavier and was way before the 1900s was her first life. So how does she reincarnate and reincarnate in the same year? Like, what's going on? So my question is, how does she reincarnate 11 times in a time span of 60 years if she's one person who's living for about 60 years? Like, does she go back in time? Like, that's the part I'm a little confused by, that I hope is explained in the future of House of X. But going back to the positive, I really enjoyed her character. I like the idea of her character. First of all, I like her motives, that she's trying to find the best for mutants by maybe doing the worst thing. And then also I enjoy that she's the invisible mutant. Like, even mutants don't know that she's a mutant. So I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, I think she's a nice, complex character to follow, and is a good character to semi-create for this event, even though obviously she's existed before. They're 100% recreating her character, repurposing her character for this arc. So I like this issue a lot, and again, there's definitely some confusing parts, and it's very exposition-y, but this is the exposition I like a bit more compared to the previous 2 issues, Powers of 10 or Powers of X, whatever it's called, in House of X issue 1. So I'm gonna give this one 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4. And number 4 for me, again, this is a book that when it's good, it's really good, and when it's somber, it's really just in the middle. And that's Outcast, issue 42. And this was one of the issues that were really good, and things actually happened. Now, I will say one of my issues with Outcast is that plot-wise, there's never much going on, and it's very similar to The Walking Dead. It's just this, but demons and exorcisms. And you never quite understand the world of why these exorcisms exist and who the villains really are, and I don't love that aspect of the book, but I do like the characters, and here we get to see a big epic battle of our outcasts going against the people they need to exorcise, and we get to see our main character and his daughter really fight it out and get some electrical powers used with their outcast abilities, and everyone's going unconscious because, they just got a lot of power taken out of them. And we get to see, I believe her name's Allison, the mom, try to take care of her daughter, and then I guess the daughter might be special because her powers go onto the mom, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I want to see where that goes. And then, of course, this is the end of the arc, and we're getting a big break, even though I feel like we haven't gotten this book as consistently as a month. Maybe I'm just feeling that way. I haven't really looked at the schedule, but it does not feel like this book came out once a month. So we're going to have to wait a while for these last 6 issues, but I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was solid. The artwork is always really good for this book, which is why it's been on my pull list for the longest time, and why I'm seeing it through the end. But yeah, Outcast issue 42 gets a solid 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3. You guys might be a little shocked with this one. But yeah, Future Foundations issue 1. I am a huge Power Pack fan, as you guys might know. I'm also a huge Julie Power fan. And as a Power Pack fan, I really enjoyed the stuff that was done with their characters. I like that Alex was the reluctant leader, because that's always been his character, where he obviously is always put into the leadership role, but he's like, should I be here? I don't know if I really deserve this, and I don't think I'm really good at this. So he's very much the man in the chair for most of the issue, while Julie Powers on this heist to try to save this prisoner, which, who knows, maybe we'll see this prisoner, and sorry, it's raining out, so if you heard thunder, but maybe this prisoner will be an important character as we go along, which I'm interested to see. Will they possibly have a relationship with each other? So, I mean, obviously these are all just speculations. We didn't really get much from them, but it was cool to see their introduction. And I love Julie. I love that, she's trying to defy what I guess what's been put into her mind where after the breakup of what she needs to be. And since she's been a teenager, she feels like, okay, well, I don't want to be a superhero anymore. But then she realizes, no, this is exactly what I love, and this is what I want to do. And I'm Julie Power, and she got has the confidence to save the day here. And I love just the way Julie was used here. I enjoyed the exposition of how they explained her character if you don't know much about her, because, the Power Pack is not the most known characters in the world. So it was nice if you haven't been following her journey, that she, you learn that she's part of Avengers Academy, that she broke up with Carolina, and that's done to her character, and what she was in the Power Pack as well, that she was, even though not the leader, was definitely more in line to be the leader than Alex because of her responsibility. And she was a bookworm, but also loved acting and wanted to be ambitious as well. So, I think it did a great job with introducing those two characters. Now, the other characters, I feel like they try to squeeze in a bit more, like Anime, where we get to see her narration way later in the issue. I felt like the structure was a little inconsistent that way. We're like, okay, wait, we're getting narrations now? I feel like if we were going to get inner monologues, it should have been in the beginning of the issue, so it felt a little bit too late. I like Bentley, though. I think we got a lot from him, and we learned a lot about his personality in this book. But overall, it's a really fun issue. It's a heist issue, but I would say if you don't know anything about the Future Foundation, it might not be the most new reader-friendly thing. Luckily, I do know about the Future Foundation, and I obviously know a lot about the Power Pack, so I really enjoyed this issue, but I could definitely see people getting lost with this one too, and I hope that after a few issues, things get to slow down a bit, so we get to learn about each individual character and how they work within the team. But I thought this was a pretty fun, action-packed first issue. And then artwork-wise, I like the cartooniness of it all. I do think that the faces have a weird proportion to them, but I think I could overlook it as issues go on, because again, I think the brightness of the colors and the cartoony nature really fits this style of book. So Future Foundation gets 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2. Number 2 for me is Crowded, issue 8. And I love this book, as you guys know, and I thought this was pretty solid. I will say that this is a little slower of an issue, but we do learn a lot about Vita. So we literally learn about her background, how she knows all these moves and these skills. And I really like seeing Charlie and Vita get closer, and maybe in a romantic way as well, because they even referenced that this is kind of like their first date. So, and I love their love-hate relationship with each other. As they get close, they kind of separate and go 2 steps back sometimes as well. And they really utilize the Las Vegas setting really well. There's literally a slot machine that is themed out of Charlie's, thing going on, whatever you want to call it. Bounty. So that was really cool. I love the background. You get a sword filled with liquor, so that was cool. So the art team definitely had a really fun time with it, and there's some good action, some good build up to the bigger assassins that may come for Crowded. So pretty solid book, and if you want to learn more about these characters, I think this is definitely the issue to read. So I gave that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, and that is Invisible Woman, issue 2. I've been really liking this book. I know, I've seen online that it's getting, lower reviews, but I'm really enjoying this one. And if you're an espionage fan, I think you should definitely read it. And first of all, I think the biggest theme of this book is don't underestimate Sue Storm. I mean, that's the best part of this whole entire book, is that, in this issue especially, where we get to see Black Widow, who's this ultimate spy. So you're like, all right, fine, you're just here because you're a superhero. You're not a spy. You're not like us. And then we get to see Sue go up against this big guy in a drinking contest, and then the big bad says, hey, I poisoned your drinks. And then Sue's like, well, I didn't drink any of them and used my powers. And the way that she used her powers are so unique, and we get to see a great chase scene by the end of the issue, and we get to learn a little bit more about Sue's old partner as well, and that's kind of the meat of the whole entire plot. But I think this is a really solid book, and if you like Sue Storm, it's so nice to see her get the spotlight. She's called Invisible Woman for a reason, and I think a lot of people do forget about her character, and it's just so nice to show, hey, no, she is actually one of the most powerful Marvel characters, and this is why. So really cool book. The artwork is out of this world, and it's just really imaginative action sequences and a really cool way to utilize Sue in not just like the epic, you know, Marvel cosmic events anymore. It's not just being utilized in a team. It shows how she could really be awesome on her own right. So, like I said, this is my pick of the week. That is 4-star book for me, my number 1. Let me know in the comments below, what were your favorite comics this week, your least favorite comics, and everything in between. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. And of course, every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Frontline Live, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. So be sure to check that out as well. Thanks, guys. Bye.